Good morning, Year 9. Hope you're well and looking forward to your next reading session this morning. We're going to carry on with our reading of The Secret Life of Bees and pick up where we left off at the top of page 142. If you follow along with my reading and with the yellow ruler on the page, and then after we're done, you can answer the questions at the bottom. August turned it off. Enough was enough. You cannot fix the whole world. I've already watered the hives around the house, she said. Zach is taking care of the hives on the east side of the county, so you and I have got the west side. Rescuing bees took us the entire morning. Driving back into remote corners of the woods where there were barely any roads, we would come upon 25 beehives up on slats like a little lost city tucked back in there. We lifted the covers and filled the feeders with sugar water. Earlier we spooned dry sugar into our pockets, and now, just as a bonus, we sprinkled it on the feeding rims. I managed to get stung on my wrist while replacing a lid onto a hive box. August scraped out the stinger. I was sending them love, I said, feeling betrayed. August said, hot weather makes the bees out of sorts. I don't care how much love you send 'em. She pulled a small bottle of olive oil and bee pollen from her free pocket and rubbed my skin, her patented remedy. It was something I hoped I'd never have to test out. Count yourself initiated, she said. To be initiated means to join a group or some sort of society, and normally through a ritual. So in this case, August is saying that Lily is a true beekeeper now because she's been stung. That's the initiation. You can't be a true beekeeper without getting stung. A true beekeeper. The words caused a fullness in me. And right at that moment, an explosion of blackbirds lifted off the ground and in a clearing a short distance away and filled up the whole sky. I said to myself, will wonders never cease? I would add that to my list of careers: a writer, an English teacher, and a beekeeper. Do you think I could keep bees one day? I asked. August said, didn't you tell me this past week one of the things you loved was bees and honey? Now, if that's so, you'll be a fine beekeeper. Actually, you can be bad at something, Lily, but if you do love doing it, that will be enough. The sting shot pain all the way through to my elbow, causing me to marvel at how much punishment a minuscule creature can inflict. I'm prideful enough to say I didn't complain. After you get stung, you can't get unstung, no matter how much you whine about it. I just dived back into the riptide of saving bees. When we watered all the hives of Tiburon and sprinkled enough sugar to cause a human being to gain 50 pounds, we drove home, hot, hungry, and nearly drowned in our own sweat. Pulling into the driveway, we found Rosaline and May sipping sweet tea on the back porch. May said she'd left our lunches in the refrigerator, cold pork chop sandwiches and slaw. While we ate, we heard June upstairs in her room playing the cello, like something had died. We scarfed down every morsel without talking, then pushed back from the table. We were wondering how to get our tired selves to a standing position when we heard squealing and laughing, the kind you're apt to hear at a school recess. August and I dragged ourselves to the porch to see. And there was May and Rosaline running through the water sprinkler, barefoot and fully clothed. They had gone berserk. Berserk is a word which refers to crazy, frenzied behaviour, so they're acting in a really strange way. Rosaline's moo was sopped and plastered to her body, and May was catching water in the bowl of her dress skirt and tossing it up across her face. Sunlight hit the hair sheen on her braids and lit them up. Well, isn't this the living end? August said. When we got out there, Rosaline picked up the sprinkler and aimed it at us. You come over here, you're going to get wet, she said. And splat, we were hit full in the chest with ice-cold water. Rosaline turned the sprinkler head down and filled May's dress. You come over here, you're going to get wet, May said, echoing Rosaline, and she came after us, pitching the contents of her skirt across our backs. I can tell you this much. Neither of us protested that loudly. In the end, we stood there and let ourselves be drenched by two crazy black women. All four of us turned into water nymphs and danced around the cool spray. It was just the way it must have been when Indians danced circles around blazing fires. Squirrels and Carolina wrens hopped as close as they dared and drank from puddles, and you could almost see the blades of brown grass lift themselves up and turn green. Then the porch door banged, and here came June with her dander up. I must have been drunk with water and air and dancing, because I her and said, "You come over here and you're gonna get wet." And then I hosed her. She began to holler. Damn it to hell! I knew this was going down the wrong path, but I couldn't stop. I was seeing myself as the fire department and June as the raging inferno. She yanked the sprinkler out of my hands and turned the spray on me. Some of the water rushed up my nose and burned. I yanked at the sprinkler, and each of us held on one side of it while it blasted away at our stomachs and chins. We went to our knees, wrestling it, the geyser weaving between us. A geyser is a hot spring of water which boils up and then shoots up in a big jet. So it's kind of really emphasizing the power of this water in this water fight. Her eyes staring at me close and bright with beads of water on her eyelashes. I heard May start to hum, "Oh, Susanna." I laughed to let her know it was all right, but I wouldn't let go. I would not let June Boatwright win. Rosaline said, "They say if you aim the hose on two locked dogs, they'll turn loose, but I guess that ain't so." August laughed, and I saw the softening come around June's eyes, how she was trying not to laugh. But it was like the Dutch boy pulling his finger out of the dike. The minute she softened her eyes, the whole thing collapsed. I could almost see her smack her forehead, thinking, "I am wrestling with a 14-year-old girl over a garden sprinkler. This is ridiculous." She let go and sprawled back on the grass in convulsions of laughter. I plopped down next to her and laughed too. We could not stop. I wasn't exactly sure of everything we were laughing about. I'm just glad that we were doing it together. When we got up, Jean said, "Lord, I feel woozy, like someone has pulled the plugs in my feet and drained me out." Rosaline, May, and August have returned to the business of being water nymphs. I looked back down to the ground where our bodies had lain side by side, the wet grasses pressed down, perfect depressions on the earth. I stepped over them with the utmost care, and seeing how careful I was, June stepped over them too, and then, to my shock, she hugged me. June Boatwright hugged me while our bodies made sweet, squishy sounds up and down. If the heat goes over 104 degrees in South Carolina, you have to go to bed. It's practically the law. Some people might see it as shiftless behaviour, but really, when we're lying down in the heat, we're giving our minds time to browse around for new ideas, wondering at the true aim of life and generally letting things pop into our heads that need to. In the 6th grade, there was a boy in my class who had a steel plate in his skull and was always complaining how the test answers could never get through to him. Our teacher would say, "Give me a break." In a way, though, the boy was right. Every human being on the face of the earth has a steel plate in his head, but if you lie down now and then and get still as you can, it will slide open like elevator doors, letting in all the secret thoughts that have been standing around so patiently, pushing the button for a ride to the top. The real troubles in my life happen when those hidden doors stay closed for too long. But that's just my opinion. August, May, June, and Rosaline were supposedly over in the pink house in their rooms, lying under fans with their lights out. In the honey house, I reclined on my cot and told myself I could think about anything I wanted, except my mother. So, naturally, she was the only thing that wanted on the elevator. I could feel things unraveling around me, all the fraying edges of the dream world. Pull one wrong thread, and I would be standing in the wreckage to my elbows. Ever since I'd called T-Ray, I wanted so badly to tell Rosaline about it, to say, "If you're ever wondering whether my leaving has caused T-Ray to examine his heart or change his ways, don't waste your time." But I couldn't bring myself to admit to her that I cared and that I was living here as if I had nothing to hide. I lay on the cot and stared at the glaring square of window, exhausted. It takes so much energy to keep things at bay. "Let me on," my mother was saying. "Let me on the damn elevator." Well, fine. I pulled out my bag and examined my mother's picture. I wondered what it would have been like to be inside her, just a curl of flesh swimming in her darkness, the quiet things that passed between us. The wanting her was still in me, but it wasn't nearly so fierce and raging as before. Pulling on her gloves, I noticed how tight they fit all of a sudden. By the time I was 16, they would feel like baby gloves on my hands. I would be Alice in Wonderland after she ate the cake and grew twice her size. My palms would split the seams of the gloves, and I would never wear them again. I peeled the gloves from my sweaty hands and felt a wave of jitteriness, the old sore-edged guilt. The necklace of lies I could not stop wearing, the fear of being cast out of the pink house. No, I breathed. The word took a long time to work its way to my throat, a scared whisper. No, I will not think about this. I will not feel this. I will not let this ruin the way things are. No. I decided that lying down from the heat was a hick idea. I gave up and walked to the pink house for something cold to drink. If I ever managed to get to heaven after everything I'd done, I hoped I would get just a few minutes for a private conference with God. I wanted to say, look, I know how you meant well, creating the world and all, but could you just let us get away from this? How come you couldn't stick with your original idea of paradise? People's lives were a mess. When I came into the kitchen, May was sitting on the floor with her legs straight out and a box of graham crackers on her lap. That will be about right. Me and May, the only two who couldn't lie peaceful on bed for 5 minutes. I saw a roach, she said, reaching into the bag of marshmallows that I hadn't noticed were there. She pulled one out and pinched off little pieces of it. Crazy May. I opened the refrigerator and stood there staring at contents like I was waiting for grape juice bottle to jump in my hand and say, here, drink me. I could not register what May was doing. Sometimes things of magnitude settle over you with excruciating slowness. Say, you break your ankle and it didn't feel like hurting until you've walked another block. I'd nearly finished a glass of juice before I let myself look at the little highway of broken graham crackers and marshmallow bits that May was constructing across the floor, how it started at the sink and angled towards the door, thick with golden crumbs of smudges of sticky white. The roaches will follow this out the door, May said. It works every time. I don't know how long I stared at the line on the floor, at May's face turned to mine, eager for me to say something, but I couldn't think what to say. The room filled with a steady whir of refrigerator motor. I felt strange, a thick feeling inside, a memory. I stood there waiting, letting it come. Your mother was a lunatic when it came to bugs, T-Ray had said. She used to make trails, cracker crumbs and marshmallows to lure roaches outside. I looked again at May. My mother couldn't have learned the roach trick from May, I thought. Could she? Ever since I set foot in the pink house, some part of me had kept believing that my mother had been there. No, not believing it so much as daydreaming it and running it through a maze of wishful thinking. But now that the actual possibility seemed right in front of me, it seemed so far-fetched, crazy. It couldn't be, I thought again. I walked over and sat down on the table. Shadows from late afternoon pushed into the room. They were peach-tinted, fading in and out, and the kitchen was almost completely silent. Even the refrigerator hum had died away. May had turned back to her work. She seemed oblivious to me sitting there. My mother could have learned it from a book. Maybe her mother. How did I know that households everywhere didn't use this particular roach-ridding method? I stood up and walked over to May. I had a trembly feeling at the back of my knees. I put my hand on her shoulder. Okay, I thought, here goes. I said, May, did you ever know a Deborah? Deborah Fontenelle? A white woman from Virginia? Would have been a long time ago. There wasn't a trace of cunning in May, and you could depend on her not to think of her answers. She didn't look up, didn't pause, just said, oh yes, Deborah Fontenelle. She stayed out there in the honey house. She was the sweetest thing. And there it was. There it all was. For a moment I felt lightheaded. I had to reach to the countertop to steady myself. Down on the floor, the trail of crumbs and marshmallows looked half alive. I had a million questions, but May had started humming. Oh, Susanna. She sat down the box of crackers and got up slowly, starting to sniffle. Something about Deborah Fontenelle had set her off. I think I'll go out to the wall for a little while, she said. And that's how she left me, standing in the kitchen, hot and breathless, the world tilted underneath me.